Taoiseach, there isn't a week that goes by where I am not contacted by a parent seeking access to childcare. On Monday, 1,500 new childcare places were announced nationally, funded by the National Development Plan's Building Blocks Extension Scheme, costing £25 million, which included 18 much-needed places in Dublin West. This government is delivering. Government needs to keep delivering, but given the scale of unmet need, 18 places is a drop in the ocean. The programme for government commits to providing capital investment to build or purchase state-owned childcare facilities. To do that at scale and value for money, I believe we need a new state building scheme specifically for childcare, something that does for childcare facilities what Design and Build has done for school buildings. The private sector has played a vital role for years in delivering childcare in our communities, but reliance on the private sector alone will never deliver the capacity we need for children's early learning and to enable parents, primarily women, to stay and work. £45 million has been allocated under the NDP for additional capacity in childcare over the last 3 years. The education capital budget for 2025 alone was £1.4 billion. That's £45 million versus £1,400 million. Taoiseach, if we're serious about changing the delivery of childcare places for local communities, our ambition should be reflected in the upcoming review of the National Development Plan. We actually have a model for building childcare facilities already, but it isn't working. Under Planning Authority guidelines for childcare facilities from 2001, 20 childcare places should be delivered for every 75 new dwellings. But that scale of delivery isn't happening because of exemptions for one-bedroom apartments, because developers are allowed to claim a new facility isn't required, even in areas of overwhelming need like Dublin West, or it only requires the developer to provide a shell of a building, often resulting in buildings that aren't fit for purpose or are hopelessly expensive for regular childcare providers to purchase, some of which have laid empty for years in my constituency, even though providers are crying out for space. Those guidelines fall across both departments of housing and children, and we had previously been promised a review. We are still waiting. The longer we wait, Taoiseach, the more we miss out on the delivery of new childcare facilities in line with the delivery of new housing. So today I'm asking you, Taoiseach, for an update on these interlinked issues, the review of local guidelines, government plans for state-led childcare, and on the potential of a new state building scheme for children, parents and the economy.
Thank you, Deputy.
First of all, thank the Deputy for raising this very crucial issue. That investment in childcare has quadrupled since 2015, from 260 million to close to 1.4 billion in 2025. Last year, I think the funding went up 26% by 261 million. Childcare costs, meanwhile, have dropped by over 38% since early 2023. And the last government did a significant amount of work, and I acknowledge Deputy O'Gorman is in the chamber. He worked with all three parties, made it a priority, and by making it a priority, it did yield results. Enrolments in early learning and care have increased by 19% between 2021 and 24. That's from 197,000 to about 234. There was a net gain of 226 childcare services in 2024. That's a 6-year low in closures. Staff numbers are up 8%. National Childcare Scheme provider participation is up 136% since May of 2022, with children benefiting enormously as a result of that. The National Childcare Scheme now supports about 220,000 children with 530 million in funding, and the ECHI scheme, as you know, offers the 2 free preschool years to cover 107,000 children. The AIM model, which is something I'd like to expand upon, the access and inclusion model, over 9,000 children with disabilities now have access to ECHI and broader early learning childcare services. The Equal Start programme supports children facing disadvantage through 770 priority services nationwide. And core funding has increased The two employment regulation orders introduced in 2022 and 2024 were breakthroughs in terms of boosting wages, but we need to do more there. In terms of the public model of childcare, the programme for government for the first time commits to that. And a strong foundation has been put in place over the last 5 years. There is an existing funding programme through the National Childcare Scheme and core funding on which to build the next phase of reform. There will be work needed within the department in terms of detailing extensive policy development and design to progress to implementation stage. So a lot of work is needed now to map out how we do that in terms of public building programme in respect of early education, and making sure that it synergises and harmonises with the existing provision also. In terms of the planning guidelines, the 2001 planning guidelines do need review. The department is currently engaging with the Department of Children, is engaging with the Department of Housing to examine and review those planning guidelines for local authorities on early learning and childcare settings. There is a working group in operation between the two departments, and I think that is an important piece of work that is required in terms of ensuring stronger provision in that regard.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Currie.
Thank you, Taoiseach. I'd be the first to say that there has been progress, but there are serious issues remaining in relation to capacity and access and core funding that need to be fixed. And today I'm hosting local childcare providers and parents in the AV room, and we will focus on a pay scale that reflects qualifications and expertise, pressures they're facing in recruitment, making core funding work, particularly for small providers, and how paperwork and bureaucracy is suffocating the sector. And there are major holes for parents and providers in last year's fee adjustment that was introduced. The local independent provider who hasn't raised her fees in 8 years and is struggling to survive, who was granted an increase of just €4 per month when others in the area charged 200 to 300 more, or the parent who was on enhanced subsidies, not universal subsidies, whose fees were increased overall last year. So the programme for government does recognise these challenges. So too have you when I've raised them. But they want to hear from the government now, not just about the future. Please. And they want to get back to building partnerships, starting with really listening.
Yeah, but first of all, I would have to say very strongly that it's one thing to just say we acknowledge. We need to more than acknowledge. It has been a significant step change in investment in childcare over the last 4 years. And that will continue in terms of the level of it. The state has funded nearly 40% of all early learning and care and school-age childcare places across multiple funding rounds. Last year, a supply management unit was established to have a forward planning and delivery unit to again assess demand and plan better and expand public supply. And in terms of the new planning model, also drawing on expertise from the Central Statistics Office, early learning and childcare specialists and GIS mapping professionals to predict and meet future childcare needs. All that needs to happen, and investment needs to be parallel with that sort of planning framework that is being designed.
Thank you,
I think the key issues will be how we sustain and retain people in early childcare into the future.
Thank you,
and the employment regulation is key to that regard.
Thank you. We now move